Courtroom ambience, muffled voices, the shuffle of papers. Then, a sharp bang of the gavel. Judge, off camera, the jury has spoken. Take her to death row. The camera pans to a woman standing perfectly still. Orange jumpsuit. Cold expression. Eyes fixed on the floor. As the deputies lead her away, the room falls silent. You can almost feel the air change, that quiet moment when everyone in the courtroom realizes, this is it. On that day, a small-town courtroom in Texas watched as Taylor Renee Parker, once a mother, a friend, a familiar face, was sentenced to die. Her story isn't just shocking, it's almost unbelievable. What drives someone to commit the unthinkable? What makes an ordinary woman, someone who smiled in photos, joked with friends, and seemed to live a normal life, cross a line so dark that there's no way back? We're not talking about a crime of passion or a random act of violence. This case is different. It's calculated, deceptive, and it left a small Texas community forever changed. Before her name became a headline, before she was labeled a monster, Taylor Parker had a story. But somewhere along the way, that story twisted into a lie so big, so dangerous, that it consumed everything around her. And in the end, that lie led straight to death row. She wasn't pregnant, but for months, she made everyone believe she was. Friends saw the belly photos. Family threw her a baby shower. She even shared ultrasound images, all of it part of an elaborate illusion that she carefully built, one lie at a time. When the truth started to unravel, Taylor Parker became desperate to keep her story alive. And what she did next would shock even the most hardened investigators. A young mother, a stolen future, a crime so horrific, it left seasoned detectives in tears. And when it was all over, Parker found herself facing the most severe punishment Texas can hand down: death. Before we go any deeper, it's important to make one thing absolutely clear. Taylor Renee Parker has not been executed. This episode explores what her final moments would look like, based on Texas death row procedures, official documents, and accounts from past cases. It's a look inside the reality of what happens when someone is sentenced to die in the state of Texas. And before we dive into this disturbing story, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? If you're into these deep dive true crime breakdowns, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free, it takes 1 second, and honestly, it helps us bring you more real cases just like this one. Let's get into it. Before October 2020, Taylor Renee Parker looked like anyone else you might pass in a small Texas town. She had that southern charm, the bright smile, the friendly wave, the social media posts about everyday life. To her friends, she was funny. To her family, she was loving. To her boyfriend, Wade Griffin, she was everything. But underneath that calm surface was fear. Taylor had convinced herself that her relationship was slipping away, that without a baby, she might lose him forever. So when she couldn't give him what he wanted most, she made a decision that would change everything. She didn't tell him the truth. She told him she was pregnant. At first, it was just words, a small lie to buy time. But it didn't stop there. Once that lie was out in the world, it started to grow. She posted updates, belly photos, and even shared fake ultrasound pictures she'd pulled from the internet. She threw a gender reveal party, pink smoke, smiling faces, confetti everywhere, all to celebrate a baby that didn't exist. To her friends, she was radiant. To her family, she was ready to be a mom. And to Wade, she was the woman carrying his future. But behind closed doors, Taylor was spiraling. She spent late nights researching how to fake pregnancy symptoms, how to mimic ultrasounds, and how hospitals track expectant mothers. She even studied premature birth and neonatal care, all to make her story sound convincing when the time came. Every lie added another layer to the illusion. And the deeper she went, the harder it became to find her way back. By the late summer of 2020, her fake due date was getting close, too close. And suddenly, Taylor found herself trapped. There were no hospital records, no doctor visits, no baby. Friends began asking questions. Her family started to notice inconsistencies. Even Wade was expecting updates she couldn't provide. Taylor had built a lie so big, it was collapsing under its own weight. And with every passing day, the pressure grew heavier. Because when October came, everyone would expect to meet that baby. And Taylor knew, When that moment arrived, her entire world would come crashing down. That's when she made a choice. A desperate, horrifying choice that would leave 2 innocent lives lost, and put her on Texas's death row. The music drops to silence. Now pause for a second. I know some of you are thinking, how does someone even come up with this? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think this was planned from the very start? Or did it spiral out of control before she could stop it? I genuinely want to know what you think, and I read every single comment. Because what happened next, no one saw coming. Before her name became part of a headline, Reagan Simmons Hancock was just 21 years old, full of energy, kindness, and that small-town warmth you can't fake. She lived in New Boston, Texas, a tight-knit community where everyone knows your name. Reagan wasn't chasing fame or fortune, she was chasing family. She was a young mother-to-be, 7.5 months pregnant with a little girl she planned to name Braxlyn Sage Hancock. She decorated the nursery herself, painting soft colors, folding baby clothes, and sharing little updates with her friends about how excited she was to become a mom. She loved her family deeply, her mom, Jessica, her husband, Homer, and the couple's 3-year-old daughter. To them, Reagan was the heart of their home, the one who kept everyone laughing even on hard days. Reagan had dreams beyond motherhood too. She wanted to build a stable future for her family, to raise her kids surrounded by love, laughter, and that familiar small-town peace. Her social media was filled with positivity, family photos, inside jokes, snapshots of a life that looked genuinely happy. People remember her as the kind of person who walked into a room and instantly made it brighter. Her friends said she had that contagious laugh, the kind that could pull anyone out of a bad mood. And when she talked about baby Braxlyn, her eyes lit up every single time. She wasn't pretending to be happy. She was happy. She had everything Taylor Parker was only pretending to have: love, motherhood, and a real future ahead of her. But that beautiful life was about to collide with a lie that had spiraled far beyond control. Because while Reagan was preparing to welcome her baby into the world, someone else, someone she knew, was preparing to take everything away. Reagan had everything Taylor was pretending to have. And on October 9, 2020, that became a death sentence. It was a quiet Friday morning in New Boston, Texas. The kind of calm, everyday morning that starts like any other. Inside her small home, Reagan Simmons Hancock was just days away from meeting her new baby, Braxlyn Sage. She'd spent the night before texting friends, folding tiny baby clothes, and talking about how ready she was for motherhood again. But that morning, someone knocked on her door. It wasn't a stranger. It was Taylor Parker, someone she knew and trusted. What happened next would become one of the darkest crimes Texas has ever seen. Police records and court testimony paint a chilling picture, but we won't focus on the gore, because what matters here isn't the brutality, it's the betrayal. In those final moments, Reagan fought for her life, and for the life of her unborn child, all while her 3-year-old daughter was just a few rooms away. By the time the house fell silent again, 2 innocent lives had been taken, one before it even had the chance to begin. Just after 10 a.m., Jessica Brooks, Reagan's mother, arrived at the house. She'd stopped by to check on her daughter, something she did often. When she opened the door, she was met with a scene no parent should ever have to see. The house was quiet, too quiet. Jessica called 911. Her voice broke as she tried to explain what she'd found. Her daughter, lifeless, and the baby she'd been carrying, gone. Police and Texas Rangers rushed to the scene, their radios echoing through the neighborhood. Word spread quickly: a young mother murdered, her unborn baby missing. Meanwhile, Taylor Parker was already gone, driving north, heading toward Oklahoma, carrying the stolen newborn with her. To anyone watching, she appeared frantic but convincing, telling people she'd just given birth on the side of the road. For a short moment, her story almost worked. A state trooper pulled Parker over for speeding. When he approached the car, he saw blood on her clothes, and in the passenger seat, a newborn baby. Parker told him she'd just gone into labor. The trooper immediately called for an ambulance, and she was taken to a nearby hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma. But when the medical staff examined her, things didn't add up. She didn't look like a woman who had just given birth. There were no medical signs, no aftereffects, no physical trauma. Then came the heartbreaking confirmation. The baby, Braxlyn Sage Hancock, was already gone. Detectives pieced it together quickly. Phone records, witness statements, physical evidence. By the time Taylor Parker was questioned, the web of lies had finally unraveled. Within hours, she was arrested, and the truth of what happened that morning began to surface. I know this is heavy. Some of you might be thinking about clicking away right now, and I get it. But here's the thing. Reagan and baby Braxlyn deserve to have their story told. The 94% of you watching who haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly why we need you to. These victims need their voices heard, and your support is what makes that possible. So if you're still here, do one thing for me, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. Do it for Reagan. Do it for baby Braxlyn. Because their story deserves to be remembered. 2 years after the murder of Reagan Simmons Hancock, the small town of New Boston, Texas, once again found itself in the spotlight. But this time, it wasn't police lights flashing on a quiet street, it was the sharp glare of courtroom cameras. It was October 2022, and the trial of Taylor Parker had officially begun. The jury, 6 men and 6 women, sat silently as prosecutors opened with one powerful statement. This case is about deception, obsession, and murder in cold blood. For 3 intense weeks, the courtroom heard it all. Fake sonograms, staged maternity photos, baby registries, and carefully crafted lies that fooled nearly everyone around her. But the most chilling evidence came from Parker's own search history: how to perform a C-section at home, how to fake pregnancy symptoms, how to deliver a baby without going to the hospital. Every search, every message, every staged social media post painted a horrifying portrait of intent. And as jurors listened, they began to understand, this wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated deception that ended with unthinkable violence. After 3 weeks of testimony, cross-examinations, and emotional breakdowns, the jury was dismissed to deliberate. It didn't take long. 1 hour. That's all it took. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. The judge asked for the verdict, and the foreman stood, guilty of capital murder. No gasps, no outbursts, just the sound of quiet sobbing from the victim's family. For the first time in 2 years, Reagan's mother, Jessica Brooks, saw justice begin to take shape. But the trial wasn't over yet. Next came the sentencing phase, a process that would last 25 days and call more than 142 witnesses to the stand. Family members, doctors, investigators, friends, each one describing the impact of Parker's lies, the pain of losing Reagan, and the emptiness left behind. On the final day, the courtroom was still. Jessica Brooks took the stand, clutching a photo of her daughter and granddaughter. Through tears, she spoke directly to Taylor Parker. "You are an evil piece of flesh, a demon. You took everything from us." The room was silent. Even the defense team didn't move. Moments later, the jury returned for the last time. The sentence, death. Judge John Tidwell looked directly at Parker and spoke the words that sealed her fate. Take her to death row. It was November 9, 2022. After years of lies, after a brutal crime and months of trial, Taylor Parker became one of only 7 women on Texas death row. As she was led away in handcuffs, reporters noted she showed no emotion, no tears, no remorse. Just the sound of the gavel echoing through the courtroom. A sound that finally, after everything, meant justice had been served. After the gavel fell, Taylor Parker was transported to a place few will ever see, the Patrick L. O'Daniel Unit, better known as the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas. This is where every woman sentenced to death in Texas waits. From the outside, it looks like any other correctional facility: razor wire, gray walls, guard towers. But inside, it's something different. Each inmate lives in a single-person cell, roughly 60 square feet, smaller than most walk-in closets. A metal bed, a toilet, a small shelf, and a narrow window that lets in just enough light to remind them what they've lost. It's not just confinement, it's isolation. 23 hours a day alone. 1 hour of recreation, usually in a small, fenced-in yard, with no contact from others. Every movement is monitored. Every sound echoes. This is where time doesn't pass, it drags. Life on death row follows a routine that never really changes. Wake up at dawn. A guard slides breakfast through a small slot in the door. No conversation, no socializing, just silence. There are no jobs for death row inmates, no group meals, no normal human touch. Visits are rare and heavily restricted, always separated by glass, always monitored. But there are still small moments of humanity. Inmates have access to chaplains and spiritual advisors, people who visit to pray, talk, or simply listen. For some, faith becomes the only thing keeping them from completely breaking. And every day they live with one unshakable reality, that their time is finite, even if no one knows when the end will come. Right now, Taylor Parker remains alive, housed in that same Texas facility, continuing the appeals process. A long, winding legal road that can take years, sometimes even decades. Every motion, every appeal is an attempt to delay the inevitable. And during that time, death row becomes its own kind of prison within a prison. Not just made of concrete and steel, but of psychological weight. Imagine knowing the exact place where your life will end, but not the day, not the hour, not the minute. That's the true punishment of death row, the endless waiting. Before we begin, let's be absolutely clear. Taylor Parker has not been executed. Everything you're about to hear is hypothetical. A look at what would happen if the state of Texas ever scheduled her execution. Now, when a date is finally set, Parker would be transferred from the Mountain View unit in Gatesville to the Huntsville unit, also known as the Walls unit. This is where all Texas executions take place, and where final hours are spent. In the final week, the legal process would intensify. Her attorneys would file last-minute appeals, often all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But once those appeals are denied, the focus shifts from fighting for freedom to preparing for the end. Guards would conduct a full property inventory, every letter, every book, every personal item logged and stored. She'd be given a clean uniform and moved to a special holding cell just a short walk from the death chamber. From that moment forward, Parker would never be alone. A guard stationed outside her door 24 hours a day, watching, waiting, recording everything. In the final 24 hours, the tone changes. There's no shouting, no aggression, just quiet procedure. Everything follows the same script Texas has used for decades. Around midday, she'd be allowed non-contact visits. Family members, a chaplain, maybe her attorney. Conversations happen through glass, using a phone on the wall. No hugs, no goodbyes in person. Later that afternoon comes the request that everyone always wonders about, the last meal. In Texas, it's not extravagant. After 2011, the state ended special meal privileges. But hypothetically, if the rules still applied, it must fall under $40 and be ordered from local restaurants. Other Texas inmates have chosen things like fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy, cheeseburgers and fries, tacos, pizza, or a slice of pecan pie. Whatever Parker might choose, that meal would be served a few hours before sunset. Afterward, she'd change into fresh prison whites. The warden, chaplain, and guards would make their final checks. And when the clock hits evening, the call comes. At the Huntsville unit, the execution chamber sits behind heavy steel doors. It's small, quiet, clinical, painted pale green. In the center is a single gurney, with 2 4-lines ready for the lethal injection. Witnesses are seated behind a pane of glass, some for the state, some for the victim's family, and a few chosen by the condemned. When Parker would be escorted in, her ankles and wrists would be strapped down. She'd be given one final chance to speak, her last words. Some inmates use those final seconds to apologize, others to declare innocence, and some say nothing at all. Once the statement ends, the warden gives the signal. Pentobarbital, a fast-acting sedative, begins to flow through the 4. Within seconds, the inmate loses consciousness. Within minutes, breathing slows. And then, silence. The attending physician checks for a pulse. Time of death is announced. The chamber lights dim. The witnesses leave. And just like that, the story ends, officially recorded, clinically sealed. But again, and it's worth saying one last time, Taylor Parker is still alive. She remains on Texas death row, continuing her appeals, waiting for the courts to decide her fate. Until then, the chamber in Huntsville stays quiet, its door closed, its gurney empty, waiting for whoever the state calls next. When you strip away the headlines and courtroom drama, the case of Taylor Parker isn't just about one crime, It's about deception, desperation, and how far someone will go to maintain a lie. It's about a woman so consumed by fear of losing love that she built an entire fantasy. One made of fake pregnancies, stolen photos, and eventually stolen lives. But behind that deception are the real victims, Reagan Simmons Hancock and her unborn daughter, Braxlyn Sage. They didn't get a final meal. They didn't get to make a last statement. Their final moments were taken from them by someone they once trusted. For Jessica Brooks, Reagan's mother, the pain doesn't end with the verdict, it just changes shape. Every day is a reminder of the daughter and granddaughter she'll never hold again. And for the community of New Boston, a small town where doors were once left unlocked, there's still an ache that lingers, a collective scar left by betrayal and loss. It's important to remember, justice doesn't erase grief. A death sentence doesn't bring back the people we lost. It only closes one chapter in a story that should never have been written. Today, Taylor Parker remains one of only 7 women on Texas death row, a rare and lonely distinction. Her lawyers continue to file appeals. Years may pass before the state takes any further action. And in that time, both families, the Parkers and the Hancocks, remain trapped between past tragedy and future uncertainty. There are still questions we may never fully answer. Why did she believe this was the only way? Was there ever a moment she thought about stopping? Maybe those answers died with the lie itself. What's left behind are 2 names we should never forget, Reagan Simmons Hancock and Braxlyn Sage Hancock. May their memory outlive the horror that took them. If you've made it this far, thank you. I know this one was heavy. Stories like Taylor Parker's aren't easy to hear, but they remind us of something important. Behind every headline there are real people, real lives, and real families left trying to heal. So tonight, if you take anything away from this video, let it be empathy. Because sometimes, the hardest stories are the ones that need to be told the most. Believe Reagan and baby Braxlyn's story deserves to be remembered. Do me one small favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon. It's completely free, but it helps more than you know. It tells the algorithm that their stories, not just the killers, deserve to be heard. Drop a candle emoji candle in the comments to honor Reagan and Braxlyn. And let me know, what do you think justice means in cases like this? Until next time, and this has been another True Crime Deep Dive. Stay safe, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next one.